Welcome to Jurassic Park.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
Do you want to know what it is?
There's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
There's a special rug in hell reserved for people who waste good scotch.
He peed on my rug.
He peed on the dude's rug.
Do your worst.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Welcome to your feature presentation. I am your host, Heath Fall, and today we are not talking about Oppenheimer. We are talking about Interstellar. Today on the roundtable, we have Andrew McKay.
Movie-themed greetings.
You know, I felt the movie theme when you said that.
Also, it instructed me to wave as well. Say, quote, movie-themed greetings, wave.
I have a note
You
here.
got
Make eye contact, wave,
Yeah.
smile. Hello.
Nod.
And with us today, we have a guest from the Knights of the Nerd Table podcast, Andrew Clark.
What's going on, guys? How are you?
I'm good.
Great.
How are you?
Mhm.
I'm really excited to be here actually because I listened to you guys' very first episode and I was driving in the car and you guys were talking and I found myself multiple times out loud interjecting into the conversation and I had to remind myself of like, I'm not there and they've already recorded this. And so I love movies. I love just the idea of film and all that. And I think this is a wonderful podcast. And so, yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, we're really happy to have
Thanks,
you,
man.
man.
Yeah. Did you interject all those times because you disagreed with everything that we were saying and now
I'm
you're
just
here
a-
to set us straight?
I just love like Dune and I was excited to see, excited for the new movie coming out. And I really enjoyed the first one. And so I just found myself like, I don't remember exactly, but you like make some comments. I'd be like, oh yeah. And they did, like would have to stop and be like, okay, no. So it wasn't ever anything I said wrong. It was just like, I wanted to like finish the thought you guys had or yeah, it was good. It felt like a conversation that I wanted to be a part of. So that's good stuff.
That's awesome. Well, we're happy to have you on. I don't know if you were the first listener to the podcast, but you were the first person who texted me that you listened to the podcast. So that's props right there.
Honored.
Yeah, because it released on like 6 a.m. and me and my wife were getting on a plane. And like I was like, okay, it did load. I was like checking the audio, just to make sure it uploaded correctly. And then you texted me like, I listened to it. And I was like, yes, the first one.
So good.
Oh,
and
man.
20 minutes is so digestible and like easy to it's a drive to work, right? So yeah, I thought it was excellent. So I've really enjoyed what you guys have been doing.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. It's fun to have you on. Yeah, we like the weekly show to talk about movies that are coming out on the weekend, and this is more of just a movie talk episode, so it's going to be a little longer. We don't know how long. I have a lot to say. I don't know about you guys, but I have lots of thoughts. So we're just going to dive into Interstellar. Do either of you want to say anything about the movie to begin with? Like any fun stories watching it or like just first like impressions, or should we just get right to it?
I'm excited for this. I'm glad that both of you have lots of good things to say or lots of things to say. I don't hate this movie. However, my first impression was a bad one. And I've seen it since. I watched it like I think 2 months ago. And every time I watch it, it gets better and better. And so I'm hopeful for the future. However, I remember the first time I saw it in theaters, I was like very skeptical. I wasn't super into it. So I'm excited to have a conversation.
I feel that. I love this movie. I'm a massive Nolan fan as a director. And so like Memento and Inception and Dunkirk, all those movies. And then like for this one, this has become like at least a once a year viewing. Like even my son was born, this is like the first movie I sat down while like holding him and watched. I wouldn't say it's like a favorite in the sense of like all-time favorite movie, but it's definitely in that top 10. But I think I liked this one because I had a really hard time and still do watching a movie where the science and like the things that are happening aren't realistic, and my mind won't let me like accept that. And this was the first movie where I could watch it knowing that Nolan did the work, that all the science was like as close to real and legit as possible. And so I think
Mm.
that's why I enjoyed it so much. I don't know if that makes sense, but like,
No,
um,
that's so good. I love that.
yeah,
Like the suspension of disbelief for like a sci-fi movie that's set on our Earth, similar
yep,
to our time, is really hard. But
yep,
when you put some space between you, like in 200 years, you're like, oh yeah,
yep,
anything can happen.
yep.
But it's like you can probably answer this. I don't know when this movie takes place, but it is like it's supposed to be really close to us.
Yeah, it's fairly, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Heath, but it's fairly like our time. We've just jacked it all up. We've, basically created a second Dust Bowl, um and then obviously the space travel that begins to happen. But yeah, it's fairly close. So it's like, what would we do? It's kind of the mentality. But then I think as we talk through the movie, there's so much science in it. But like that was the thing Nolan took really serious, was like, I want it all to be legit and not just like this far-fetched idea, but like an actual like, no, this is like what it would be like if it happened. And so I think I just appreciated that, of like, I didn't have to suspend reality is what it felt like. I could just be like, okay, like let's see if this is what it would be like. So
Yeah, actually, so I got here that it's supposed to take place. The beginning is 2067,
okay.
and it jumps ahead 23 years. The movie ends around the year 2156, with Cooper being 124 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, this
Crazy.
is. I like that they put it in the future enough.
Mhm.
It does bug me. Like when we've Marty McFly goes to the future with flying cars and uh, pizzas that are little packets that you throw in the microwave and it expands. And that was 2015. So where's my flying car? That's all
Mm.
I have to say.
We were so close.
I also love the theory in Back to the Future that because Marty, like, because he goes forward to 2015, but then he goes back to 1955 and then back to 1985, or then 1885. So all of those jumps made the future different. Like he
Mm.
changed 2015 because we never go to 2015 after they leave, right? So
No, I don't think
like,
so.
so we changed it. That's why we don't have Jaws 17, and
Ah,
that's why. Um, we'll have to do a Back to the Future podcast, but I do want to bring up that they were making fun of Jaws movies. Like, oh my gosh, they're making so many of these, and there were
Yeah.
four. And what are we on? Fast and Furious 10 right now?
yeah.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
just like I think there's other series that's like, oh my gosh, another Jaws movie. Can't they get that dang shark? uh,
Good.
but yeah, so another thing I love about this movie is I feel like it's a rare genre where it's like almost pre-apocalypse. Like it's not post-apocalypse. Like it's like the end is happening. Like or
Hmm.
it's almost, apocalypse. Uh, I thought about the first Mad Max movie when they're like, we're running out of gas. Like there's no more
Mm.
gas coming, and so we have to start hoarding it. And so like the beginning of the end, and then like Mad Max 2 Road Warrior is like full on like society has crumbled.
Yep.
Um I think it's like yeah, that's such an interesting part of this movie that it's like it's ending. It's
Yeah.
pretty somber of a movie. It's really like I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like does this movie bring you down or does it like do you find it hopeful because of where it goes or
I do find it hopeful. I think the arc of the movie itself is really good in the sense of like you do start down, like you I think I appreciate that it's not like zombies and we're just at war apocalyptic. It's just kind of it feels, again, back to the initial comment, almost feels realistic. Like, yeah, I think if the world was suffering, we would probably do this, where all of a sudden the military and NASA and the government would start having these secret projects and everyone else was more or less, we'd find out a way to survive, even though if it was a very weak means of surviving. We would figure out a way to kind of keep society going. Um, and then obviously how the movie ends, like there's a lot of hope in that. But yeah, I definitely feel the somber, and I like that term pre-apocalyptic, but like on the cusp of basically.
Yeah. Yeah, can you guys think of another movie that's like that? Those two are the only thing I can think of. Like, oh, maybe Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
Like
Oh, that's a good example. Yeah.
yeah,
ends
it's
with
really good.
basically the beginning of the new. But yeah, let's jump into this. Actually, my first note on this movie was pre-apocalypse, so we've already started.
Amazing.
What do you guys think about the name Murph? You guys name a kid Murph?
That was my grandma's last name, so
There you
I'm
go.
in.
Was it
Uh,
Murphy or just Murph?
It was Murphy.
Okay.
So
Did you call her Murph?
I should have. I should have. That's a missed opportunity, but yeah.
Uh, I like again. It's so interesting that McKay. I struggling so much. I struggle.
I
Uh,
struggle.
you guys are both Andrew, so I'm gonna call McKay and Clark by their last names, which I feel weird about doing, but that's how I'm gonna refer to you guys.
It's fine.
But yeah, so I don't even remember what I was saying because that took all my bandwidth there. But Murph.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't name a child Murph.
Oh yeah,
Apologize. That's
I remember
yeah.
I remember what I was gonna say now. Um, it's cool that you're on that you're not like this isn't like your go-to Nolan movie because I believe you like Christopher Nolan movies, right?
You talking to me?
Yeah, talking to you, Murph.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, definitely not a go-to. I mean, I could probably watch The Dark Knight any time. Like, doesn't matter what's time of day. Christmas Day? Let's put The Dark Knight on. So that's just always a hit for me. Um, this is also maybe really silly of me. Really liked Tenet and like immediately. So I don't think it was like the confusing or like mysterious aspect of Interstellar that didn't like itch my brain because Tenet was like so confusing and I was like eating it up. I was like, yeah, confuse me more. Um, yeah, the more I watch this movie, the more I like it, but there's still like that little bit of like, I'm not sure about this. Like,
Hmm.
you know?
I think how you walk out of a Nolan film is really interesting because I think his Batman movies, there's a lot to talk about that, but I feel like you walk out and you get it. Like, I don't think anybody's like, hold on, he's not a bat, he's a man. Batman.
Oh my gosh.
But I would say, you know, different movies made me do different things. Like Inception, I looked up stuff on the internet right after. Like my brain was just like, okay, is this like not like I had questions, but I was like, I want to learn. I want to do theory, you know.
Mhm.
Tenet, I would say I say Tenet kind of gets a lot of flack. I feel like I've heard a lot of people say there's a lot of people I've heard just didn't like that. People who like Nolan, which is kind of interesting because I enjoyed it. I think sometimes Nolan can be a bit of almost I want to kind of refer to it as a more style over
Mhm.
substance. Like it's interesting or it's cool or it's looks amazing. Which the black hole scene in this one I did not understand at all the first time I watched it. And then in this viewing, I was very much, okay, this is a fifth dimensional being trying to show us something. Like, okay, like at least I understand the concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I've always appreciated about Nolan is I agree with you about the style and whatnot. I think it's the like he was the perfect director for Oppenheimer because I feel like he is a massive nerd who knows how to make movies. Meaning like with Interstellar, I think with Tenet, I think with even a movie like Dunkirk, like there is so much going on all the time that he and his crew have thought about and put time and effort into, that you can watch it multiple times and pick up on new things as it's happening. Like Dunkirk, the ticking, the tick 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 tick, that's like constantly happening is like legit like a timepiece for like needing to have happen what has to happen. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? To then you go to like Interstellar, where like the image of the black hole was based off Newton's law, and it was the first rendering image of a black hole that scientists now use and have helped us discover black holes in the universe. Like it was like, you know what I mean? Like he put all that time and had like actual like physicists and scientists on his crew to make the movie. And I
Mm.
think like Tenet is a great example too of like it's such a crazy thought that he tried to make stylistic that I think that's where people can get lost unless you have the internet or the dudes to sit around and be like, what the heck just happened? Let's break like let's have this conversation. I sat in my basement with two buddies after we finished Tenet. We talked for like another 2 hours, like researching, reading, like just that constant like, okay, this happened. Okay, look, we got to go back and watch that. So yeah, I find myself kind of getting lost in his films, but I enjoy that side of it. I think I know like he cares, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you want that. You want to
Mhm.
be like something that makes you think. And I don't mean that as a dig either, because I think a lot of directors forget to make things interesting.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, it's like, okay, this is the story you wanted to tell, but why did I watch it? You know, it's all about like I would say it's about story at its heart, but it's about visuals, it's about comedy, it's about dialogue, and there's a lot of elements that go in there. And if you forget to make it interesting, or like, why would I? You know, I don't know. I think it's both too. It's like you can't just have style or just have the twists or the intricate planning. You know, it's like just because you throw a story in reverse doesn't make it interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's still an interesting thing, and it's a lot more interesting than most movies too. So it's like, okay, if you have a purpose, like I think, you know, Dunkirk is another one that I love Dunkirk, and I think it's so I love the way the multiple storylines attach at the end, and
Yeah.
it's like it was very purposeful to me, you know. My wife told me she went to see Dunkirk just for Harry Styles, so I've got to live with that jealousy.
Respect
Me
it.
too.
You know, I don't want to talk about it, but if you guys want off the pod, we'll talk about it.
You're good.
But I was laughing because I brought that up originally because of the daughter's name is Murph after Murphy, and I think the son makes a joke. Also, Muad'Dib.
Lisan Al Gaib.
I just watched this movie 2 days ago, and I'm like, I'm trying to not talk about Dune anymore. It's everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Oh man, but yeah, he was great in it. He wasn't very long, but he makes a joke that she's named after Murphy's Law. And then when Matthew McConaughey takes his daughter out of the car, it kind of seems like they did actually name her after
Yeah.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is such a Christopher Nolan thing. Like, well, every kid is named after a specific thing, and here's the story. And let me explain it to you.
Yeah.
Which I think is just like, it's just funny, but it's like, I get that he's trying to say that point.
I assumed
yeah.
watching it, her name was just Murphy, and he called her Murph.
Right. Yeah. No,
That's what
no,
I
I think that's
assumed,
what.
but
Yeah. No, I just think it's funny that he's like also explaining it in the movie. That he's like, no, we did name you after Murphy's Law, and here's why. And he like pulls out a book, and I'm like, okay, Nolan, can we get to the space, please?
Take it to space.
Take me to space. So yeah, everyone, which I thought was really cool, because in a zombie movie or like big war or something, you know, like everyone in this one, it's everyone becomes a farmer. Like your default is you become a farmer. The really well-adjusted people become scientists or something. And I was like, oh man, if this was like a war movie or a zombie movie, I could see them being like on a long form. It'd be like, okay, everyone is a soldier. Your default is you're a zombie killer. If you're really smart, maybe you can work on the cure. Which I thought that was cool, you know, and yeah, slowly all the plants are dying, but everyone's got to make food because that's all they need.
Yeah. They like say we ran out of bullets and all that kind of stuff, like the government is like shuts down the military. It becomes very like force fed that you have to, yeah, be a farmer, which I thought, again, I appreciated that it wasn't this like murder, wild, yeah, zombie type thought, but I don't know, felt a little more realistic.
which
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for. Like I love zombies. I love the world is over. I love um like X thing is trying to kill us, whether
Mm,
it's like a plague or zombies or aliens or whatever. I think that's more like for me, I can grab onto that. Um, which maybe is why this didn't initially like do it for me because I was expecting like, oh, like the world is going to end and there will be a bad guy, but the bad guy was just like other people, but like ambiently other people.
sure.
It wasn't like a corporation that has killed our planet. It was just like, yeah, we didn't do a very good job, did we? You know,
Like,
and now we have to go to space.
a company like Wayland Utami. I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Just something like that, or
Yeah.
did you guys catch the Stanley Cup?
No.
He's drinking out of a Stanley Cup. It's like the old classic Stanley Cup. I just thought that was funny. It's like, huh,
Uh,
trendsetter. And then I started laughing if like Matthew McConaughey drinks out of like a very feminine Stanley Cup.
He's ahead
Just
of
like
the game.
that's how he drinks his stuff.
it probably
Um,
fit in his cup holders in his truck.
yeah, probably would. So then we got the drone scene. Yeah, what do you guys think about that? He hacks the drone from the car.
While he's driving. So irresponsible. I hate it.
Yeah. Very scientist of him, but he's
Yeah,
a farmer though. So, yeah, it's good times.
right. Which is like, I think that's when you begin to be like, okay, what is his character? Because he's a farmer, but he can hack a drone.
Yep.
Yeah, and then his like how his son was like they make a joke. It was like, well, I guess that answers the question if you drive off a cliff. If someone told you to, because the kid was like, my dad told me to drive, so hey,
Just went for it.
I'll just drive off this cliff.
Yeah, it's classic.
Oh man.
But I feel like when I first saw the drone, it did make it feel like there was a bigger point to it, but then it just was like a thing to help the story along, is what it kind of vibed like. I don't know, I forget the technical term for those things that happen in movies like that, but um, yeah,
Like a
it was
red
interesting.
herring, you mean?
Yeah, like just something that helps us, like it's a big plot point for us, like exposition. It just kind of
Hmm.
helped, like, oh yeah, there's something else going on, but like it
Hmm.
felt random. But
Hmm. Well, communism was the red herring, I believe, in this movie. So. And that's from the movie Clue, which is also a delightful movie.
Well, no, I think that's part of like the I don't know what would be a good word to describe it, like the ambient noise or the white noise of a world that you create. Um, and that I think is just makes it interesting. It makes it more believable when
mm-mm.
maybe someone like me would have a hard time suspending disbelief or like if it wasn't as scientifically accurate. I feel like um, adding details into the lore of the world that you're building that just pop up help you like sink your claws into it and take it seriously.
That's a good point. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, this is not surprising that Nolan is a great filmmaker, but I love seeing him draw us into this world. Because I mean, it starts off with this guy as a corn farmer on sitting on a porch, and you're like, oh, is
Mm-hmm.
this current day Iowa? And he's just a farmer. It's like,
Yeah.
and they do it too without. There's not shots of other places around the world.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's cool because they basically just tell us like this is everywhere. This is all there is. It's
Yep.
dust and corn. And I was like, that was really cool that they didn't feel the need to. Here's India. Here's California. Like all different places.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so they bring that down. So they go to the test scores and they basically say his son like is a farmer. That's all he can be. And then, oh yeah, did you guys see that Murph was drawing? She was already drawing the spaces for the bookshelf.
Yeah.
In her like she was holding that sketchbook and she was already like her notes of like she was trying to figure that out already.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one like Easter egg that I think is really fun about this movie is, and it's kind of a Nolan special, but he has a lot of times he will give away his movie's endings very, very, very early on in the film. Um, like you see the bookshelf with the watch in the very opening scene when it says Interstellar on the screen, right? And then all of a sudden, fast forward into the movie, and that's the ending of the movie is the bookshelf covered in dust and the watch. Um, he does it
No,
in. Have you guys seen Prestige?
dude, that was
Yeah.
my first Christopher Nolan
That's
movie.
an incredible movie. You see top hats and you see two yellow birds hopping, talking to each other between the fence. That's the opening scene. Now, if you haven't seen it,
Hmm.
we'll get out. But if you have seen it, you'll understand that's the movie. Like it's
Yeah.
very interesting that I don't know, I don't have other examples that he's done, but I know he's done it a couple times where like there's little things usually fairly early on that are like his little Easter egg or nod to like where the film's going. And so to your bookshelf point, it's like you begin to now watching it 3 or 4 times, you see the little intricate like, oh, we're seeing it all happen in front of us, which I thought was really fun.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he? Go
Oh,
ahead.
go. No, you rock and roll. I talk too much.
Oh, it's not true. I like hearing you talk. Do you think that Nolan's idea or purpose is rewatch, like rewatchability? I don't know what you call that. Um, or is that just a side effect of the type of movie that he wants to make? Like, is he trying to get people to watch it several times, or is he just like, you probably might have to, because that's what I'm doing?
It's probably both and like I feel like it is like like um I look at it like this. The three newest Star Wars films, are they considered like they're considered
The
prequels, correct?
sequels.
No, they're sequels.
Yeah.
Um, The Last Jedi, awesome, awesome movie. I really, really wanted to rewatch it though for the what's her name using the ship as a missile going into hyper speed. Like that, like
Yeah.
watching that in the theater, I felt like a 10-year-old kid again, right? So Oppenheimer, like watching the explosion and just the shock of that scene, I'm sitting in the theater actually next to Heath, like feeling like a 10-year-old kid again. And my first instinct was, I need to see that again. And like the movie wasn't even finished yet. There was still an hour and a half of the movie left. But I was like, I need to see this again. Um, so I think that is one thing that is like a spectacle of a Nolan film is you're just like, I'm just gonna have to rewatch this. But I wonder if, like we were saying early on, there's so much in his films that he just knows, like, you're gonna need to watch it again, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I'd love to hear his answer for that. If he wants you to rewatch, I know he's a movie fan. I saw an interview with him today that I think I can't remember the interviewer. But someone asked him that it's like, is it true you're a big Fast and Furious fan? And he goes, yeah, I love them. And the interviewer's like, I haven't seen any of them. And he goes, yeah, you should start with Tokyo Drift. And
That's the best one.
I was like, this guy just loves movies.
Yeah.
And then he got distracted by the timeline of the movie, which I thought was hilarious. Like Christopher Nolan actually needs to figure out sequentially Fast and Furious movies. But I wondered if he was going to breathe. I was like, I don't know. Somebody who likes Fast and Furious, to me, it's like, that's a movie that it's fun to watch. Like, I don't know. The quality is throughout the 10 of them are so like up and down, but they're fun. They're
Yep.
movies, I'd say the same thing with superhero movies, and I feel like we're getting so many of them that I've become very wary of
Hmm.
superhero movies. But it's one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, you walk in, your kid's watching one, you're like, that's fun. I'll watch that, or it's like, would you ever say? I will probably never say no to someone asking to go to to Avengers movie. Like, even I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not my thing anymore or whatever. It's like, hey, you want to go see? Like, yeah, it's fun,
Yep.
So I think you're right, Clark, that it's probably both. But I know he's a movie fan, so I think he would want to craft movies and probably does rewatch movies, himself. And so I think he would. Yeah, I think he would. I would say someone like him probably wants you to be able to figure it out the first time. He doesn't want to leave it in mystery, but he also that gets him excited if he's like, "Ooh, it takes him a couple times." They want to rewatch it and rewatch it.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. So the sandstorm, I think that was cool. Okay, question about the baseball game happening because they have a baseball game and then they cancel it due to the sandstorm. Now, Clark is more of a baseball person than I am. That's the Yankee symbol. Are they? Do you think they are? The film takes place in Colorado. I looked it up.
Okay.
Are they insinuating that those are the Yankees?
There's a sign on the fence that says like the world famous Yankees.
Interesting.
Um, but I don't know if that sign is hung because the Yankees are visiting whatever team is there. So it would be
Right.
like the Colorado Rockies. But I think they use that scene to show like it's not very good baseball
Yeah.
because everyone's like a farmer now. And so, um, yeah, I think it was just, I don't know if that threw me off the first time I watched it too, because I'm like, I don't think they're in New York. So
Yeah.
my assumption is they hung that because the Yankees were playing there, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. And the ballpark is like obviously it's like your backyard baseball field. If they build it, they will come mentality, right? It's in a cornfield. So um I think yeah, but I think it's supposed to mean that's the Yankees.
Yeah. That's what I thought. And I was like, I did not get that the first time I saw it. And I was like, that's pretty cool because it's like, that's one of the most famous, professional baseball teams, but they are, it's like, well, there's only so many people left in the world.
Yep.
And that's the best baseball players we have left.
Yep.
It's like, oh, that was so interesting. And me and Clark were on a baseball team together. So got to rep the Raptors.
The Raptors. And I wore a Yankees hat while I was on the Raptors. Full circle. There it is.
Was this last season? Just last year, you guys?
Yeah.
did this? Oh,
Yeah, a
good.
little.
Last year.
We got a picture. I'll post it sometime on
Oh, good.
our show page. Yeah, it's me and my cousin Joe and Andrew, and we're all holding our trophies, and we're at an ice cream place. How old? I mean,
Well, at
8?
least 26, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it was
Third,
like
fourth,
20.
fifth grade.
It was 25 years ago, so I was 37. McKay
I
likes to
have-
joke that I'm old. So.
I have the full team picture in
Ooh.
out my basement here. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, we
So,
should do that. Oh,
but
that's awesome.
well,
Good times.
Good times. Good times.
But I did love that because it did feel like they were just watching like a little league game.
Yeah.
But that was professional baseball, but that's all that was left.
Yep.
I was like, oh man. So then we got that they find out it's binary that's coming through the bookshelf.
Yep.
They're like, yep, that's what that is. And then it was interesting. They said that it says stay. And we can get into that later, but I was like, I'm a bit confused at what happens when, and I think that's the whole point of the movie.
Yep.
Because he's bouncing around in the black hole trying to send
Yep.
messages, and it's like
Cooper's
it's like,
there the whole time.
yeah, right? So every
Yeah.
time the bookshelf
The
is
whole
doing anything, it was
time.
him.
The whole time. Yeah, you're welcome. He's there the whole time.
Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah. But that was a second or third watch thing I picked up on, which let's keep going through the movie, but that's a pretty epic, I think. Like to me, that's the Nolan touch of like, oh, okay, that's what I was almost saying about like the beginning of the film spoils the rest of the movie if you're paying attention. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Is ultimately that kind of what gets played out there.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely, I think it goes to that point of this movie is fun to rewatch because you can start figuring that stuff out. Like you have no idea that he's there. And then you find out he's there. He sent him messages. Oh, wait, which message was here? And then you figure out, oh, he was there the whole time. Like, that's pretty cool. So the binary, I believe it was 1000111001. No, it's not true. If I memorized the binary.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Just a casual fan.
Just believed it.
Which, of course, is the coordinates for Colorado's NORAD system. It's like, what? Shoot, there's a band. They have a song that's called that 100011100101. I'll think of it later. A Clutch. That's it. The band Clutch. Look
Sweet.
it up. It's delightful. But that's the only reason I know I memorized a line of binary. So they go to NORAD. They meet Dr. Brand. Seneca Crane makes an appearance from the Hunger Games. He's in a lot of world-ending movies. Okay, so they said I think this is the first time I heard the Dr. Brand, the senior, said, "We thought you were dead." Did you guys pick up on that? Like, because they were like, "You're the best shuttle pilot that's alive, but we thought you were dead." And I was confused at why they we don't really hear why, unless I missed it. I was like, why did they think he was dead? He went farming, but it was, and I know it's world ending, but just like,
was it the assumption of he would have been involved sooner with what they were doing, but he went and became a farmer instead? Like, obviously he's an incredible pilot, but he's not working for NASA. He's got 500 acres of corn. You know what I mean? So I wonder if it's like just that assumption of, oh, we just assumed you were dead. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I was. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I was just confused because it was just like, what happened that he was a NASA pilot? He was training. I think was he training for the Lazarus missions?
I don't think so.
That.
Maybe he was.
It's like, yeah, what happened that he wasn't at NASA? Because they seem like when he showed back up, it's like, oh, this is the golden guy. This is you're the best. We want you for this. Not just like he was disgraced. Usually there'd be like a story of like, you were fired from NASA for joyriding the shuttles. You went for a beer run.
What did they tell us in the movie? What percentage of population, or like how many people were dead at that point? Where like you would just naturally assume, well, I haven't seen so and so they're probably gone.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I don't remember seeing or hearing a scene like that, but
yeah, that was what my initial thought was like, you see someone that you recognize and you go, oh, I thought you were dead, just because like most people are.
Yeah. Wow.
I always assume if I haven't seen anybody in like 24 hours, they're dead. So,
wow, what an emotional roller coaster we should do like a mental health podcast episode.
You should get some help. Seriously.
Yeah.
Don't you guys ever wonder?
Maybe like an object permanence episode where we teach you that just because you don't see something doesn't mean it's not there.
Did we talk about that on a podcast, or was that off podcast that we talked about that? I don't remember.
Object permanence?
Yeah. I don't know why. I think it's so interesting and kind of funny that babies don't have object permanence. Like, it kind of makes the whole peekaboo thing kind of messed up because they think you didn't exist for a second. Man. Oh, man. Okay, so I've got the answer to that rabbit hole.
Oh, great. Cool.
So there's a couple billion or a few million people left. The time.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're like a few hundred million. Sorry, a few hundred million are supposed to be what's left.
That's insane.
For yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. So I think that's what they never explicitly say, but that makes sense too, that they were just, the population of the earth has gone down so much. Anyone you don't hear from or you've seen a while. So there must have been something that he was taken away, or, something happened that he left them or wasn't a part of that, and then they're just like, well, anybody who's not here is, you assume they're gone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Not just
I do like that Brandt Senior is Michael Caine though. That brings me a lot of joy. So,
and I think I could see, I've never heard anybody say this, but I could see people being like, seriously, he's in this one too. But I never get tired of him. I don't know why. I feel like he acts a lot of the time similar, but his characters are so different that I feel, I don't know. I don't get tired. I don't get weary. I don't see that.
He is the Rob Schneider of Christopher Nolan films, a la Adam Sandler.
Exactly.
Oh, I was like, Rob Schneider is in Christopher Nolan movies? That's amazing. He's like
Don't
in
you
the
remember?
background. Like, ooh.
Michael Caine comes up and says, "You can do it." That was my oh my gosh, what's his name? You just said his name. The boy we're
Rob
talking about.
Schneider?
No, the other
Schneider?
guy.
Adam
Michael
Sandler?
Caine. Michael Caine. My gosh. That was the Michael Caine doing a Rob Schneider impression.
Yeah, perfect. It was so good.
Yeah, it was like Inception.
Whoa.
Also, I do want to say that Michael Caine is in Jaws 4. So another full circle moment.
A spry young man, I bet.
Oh, man. He's still somehow old.
Too good.
So yeah, they didn't know Cooper was alive. Yeah, so it was kind of cool. They sent the coordinates, so they say, "Hey, go back to NORAD." They didn't know you were alive, and then he goes from there. So then they have to solve the problem of gravity. That's the big issue, which I was confused at this, so I had to look some of this stuff up. Do you guys understand this? I can recite what I read, but
Yeah, just nerd out on this real quick.
okay.
I think it's like 9.81 meters per second squared, isn't it? There you go.
Savage.
Gravity. Fixed
One,
it, solved it.
1 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 1
Yeah,
0
lay it on me. Lay it on me, fall.
1. Next episode will be completely in binary. So is that true? Like, Mr. Teacher McKay, is that
Oh, like the speed of gravity? Yeah, 9.81 meters per second per second.
beautiful? But do you understand, like, in the movie? Because I don't understand, like, what they're trying to fix.
No clue.
Okay, so I looked it up. That was the thing too that I thought. So basically, they're trying to get these giant space stations off the ground. Is that what I'm understanding? Like,
Yeah, like what the Lazarus Project was, like that ship. Yeah.
So they discover the wormhole that they're like, we've sent probes through. We've sent 12 astronauts through into habitable worlds to test them. And so we basically, there's two plans. One plan is to send basically what was that cartoon movie also with Matt Damon with the dredge, Titan AE.
Yep.
Remember that movie? It's a cartoon. McKay, have you not seen Titan AE?
No.
Oh my
No.
gosh, you need to watch it. Look up this poster while we're talking. You'll just be like, dude, I need to see this. That was the same thing. That was like, we need to make this Genesis ship that has like embryos on it that basically this can repopulate a world with humans. And so that was plan B, right? That they would have.
The embryo thing was plan B, I think.
Yeah. And so plan A was we need to fix the gravity equation and take these giant space stations off Earth to go to the wormhole. So the whole mission is for Matthew McConaughey to go through the wormhole and find a habitable world.
Yes.
Which of the 12 have a good habitable world? Am I tracking?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I was getting, at least, was that there was some astronauts that were sending back coordinates of like, hey, this place seems legit.
Yeah. And then they go, I think they had 3 that were responding.
Yep.
So one was One was just like a ping, I believe, that was like, come here. And then one was, these readings are great. There was the leader of the thing was like, these are great. And then the third one, somehow it wasn't as promising, but they also said there was life, you know, which I think that was really interesting. I finally understood those three this time. So they're basically, they go off and they're like, okay, like they're going to try to fix gravity. And they're sending a ship through with Matthew McConaughey. They're going to go find which of these worlds is actually the best option to send these ships.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a terrible idea. I'm sorry. I couldn't think of a different idea, but all I can think, and maybe this is just like me personally, if I was one of those astronauts that went to, oh wait, does this literally happen? Hold on. Do one of the astronauts like send a good signal so that they'll come pick him up? Oh, dude,
That's
what a terrible idea. Why would you do that?
that's the
I was like,
antagonist of the movie.
which is Matt Damon, isn't it?
Matt
Yeah.
Damon.
Dude, that guy sucks.
I
did
do
look up
love
the
that
Titan.
I do love that they
I-
kept Matt Damon's character a secret though. But you didn't know
Yeah.
Damon was in the movie. But anyways.
That's kind of like the best secret cameo I've seen was Deadpool 2 when Brad Pitt was the Invisible Man. You see him for half a second.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, I feel silly now, and now I'm gonna shut up forever. But hey, I came to it organically.
I'm gonna
Beautiful.
throw McKay under the bus a little bit because we usually try to watch the movies fairly recent to when we talk about them. And I said this morning to McKay, I was like, "Hey, or no, you asked me." I was like, "No," I said, "Are you ready for the pod tonight?" And he goes, "Inception, right?"
At least I got the director.
Too good. I tried to convince him to do Oppenheimer, but we had already said Interstellar, and I was good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we'll do Oppenheimer at some point, but I just I struggle because we're trying to do a podcast here where people want to listen, but I'm always like, everyone's talking about Oppenheimer right now though. Like,
I respect that.
I don't know. I'd rather talk about it when it's not, and maybe that's me as a rebel, and that's not a great way to to be a podcaster. But I'm like, let's talk about it when everyone's not talking about it. It's like, let's talk about
Heath,
Interstellar.
we're just really unique, and we just gotta keep being unique, you know?
Exactly.
We're gonna talk about Christopher Nolan, but not the movie everyone's talking about right now. We're gonna talk
Beautiful.
about the other one.
Wonderful.
And if you clicked on this podcast, that's probably going to be the name of it. Is like, forget Oppenheimer, Interstellar. Just like Oppenheimer. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to make Oppenheimer poster and a big red X. Like, get that out of here. It's like, and then people will listen and watch and they'll be like, no, actually, I loved Oppenheimer. It was a great movie. I just didn't want to talk about it today.
That was probably the loudest movie I've ever seen.
Oppenheimer?
Yeah, it was so loud. Which, a bomb movie, I guess that checks out.
Makes sense.
All right. So then we've got the launch of the shuttle. Rage against the dying of the light. I feel like it hit different this time. This is the first time I've watched this movie being a parent. And the whole idea of leaving your kids to save your kids' future. I was like, I don't know. Before you're a parent, I feel like I didn't care about that. And I did bring up, have you guys seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
I have not.
Oh, it's a good movie. So I'm going to spoil it here. Are you guys okay if I spoil it?
Go for it.
All right, spoiler. No, it's an alien movie, and in the end, the main guy decides to leave with the aliens. And he's like, this is amazing. This is wonder. And he leaves his family to go on this journey. And Steven Spielberg had an interview where he said, I would change that ending now. Because that was before I had kids. I made that ending. And now that I have kids, I would not do that. If aliens came to Earth and said, go on this, journey with me, explore space and time, he's like, I would not go. Wow. And I was like, wow, that really changed. And it's really reminded me of that in this movie. Just that whole idea of leaving family to save that family.
Yeah. Wow. I th It feels like there's in a lot of ways that's like the low key message of this film is the fact that Cooper or McConaughey's character like misses so much of his kid's life technically. Like, which is again as we get closer to the end of the movie, you begin to see some of that play out. But like he like even I didn't even think about this until you brought it up, Heath. It's like I wonder even him not being a part of NASA to go farm was so that he could be with his kids because he knew everything else would just keep pulling him away from his kids. And then obviously as they get into space after the shuttle leaves, right, and we hear the, Dylan Thomas that poem, the don't go gentle into the good night. Like there's that reality of like he's leaving again, and it's just yeah, there's something now like you hit it about having kids. It's just like he's gonna save them, but it is a massive, massive risk,
Yeah.
and don't know if I could do it.
Gosh. Yeah, and we'll get
Do
to
you
it.
think
Oh, go ahead.
do you think that he would have gone on the mission if he hadn't had kids?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, what do you question? What do you mean
I
by
don't.
that?
Well, it
You think
seems
he wouldn't
like
have gone?
so he goes, okay, I'm going to share opinions about this movie that apparently I've never seen before. He goes, allegedly, leaves NASA, leaves whatever that life is like to farm and be with his children because he's really smart and he knows that the earth is dying. And he's like, "Well, I'm just going to soak up this time with them and be a dad." And then they get
Oh.
reconnected
Oh,
and
I'm
they're
sorry.
like,
I think I misunderstood your question. You're saying, do you think he would have left NASA?
yeah, so like if so like he gets reconnected with NASA with and they say we have an option. We can do something about this. We can save future generations and we need your help. Like you have to be that person. Do you think he would say yes? Because to me, he says yes for the sake of his children,
Mm.
but he left for the sake of his children because he didn't
Mm.
think there was an option. He was like, well, we can't fix it. So I'm just going to go be with them. But when they tell him there's an option and he says, okay, I have to take that so that they can have a future and they can have kids and carry on, whatever. But I don't know. We're talking about motivations of people pre and post children. I don't know if he would say, okay, I'll help if he didn't have kids. If he was like, no, I'm dying with like the rest of us.
Mm.
Um, why would I waste what precious months or years I have to drink beer and sit on my farm? So I'm wondering what your opinion is. Do you think that like the sole reason that he pushed himself into that or like accepted that role maybe is because of his kids, or was there I couldn't pick up any personal reason.
I
Yeah,
will no, you go.
I've never even thought about that, but I feel like my initial thought is I don't think he would have ever left NASA to begin with if there was no
Nice.
kids. I could see him staying just to stay, right? But I didn't even think about like the idea of him going. Like I do think he went back because he wanted to save his kid's life. But yeah, that idea of like if there was no kids and he had left NASA, it's a suicide mission is what it would be framed as. So why? I'm gonna die
Yeah.
anyways. Let me die in peace. If it means I have 10 more years here or not, I'd rather do that than jettison myself into space to never come back. Like, um, yeah. Wow.
Hmm. I feel like we're playing with a lot of what ifs, but yeah, I wonder, would he have ever left NASA to begin with if he didn't have kids? Which
Hmm.
would have meant, I like that idea personally. I think I like the idea that he left NASA because of his family. He saw the world was ending. And he went on the flight because he's like, I see hope for my family. That's why I'm going to do it. But I also love the idea that if he had stayed, in NASA because like didn't care, or because he didn't have kids or a family, he probably would have been on the Lazarus missions. Then he probably would have been one of the 12, which means
That's a good point.
most likely he would be dead at this point, because I think they say only 3 of them are even producing signals, like,
Yep.
which I think 2 of them are already dead, or we know the one at the very end was what died there or died recently. Yeah, Matt Damon is the only person that survived. But wow, yeah, that's a lot of interesting stuff. That's really interesting to think about. But then
I
also,
wonder what Nolan would say.
yeah,
Oh, I'll
Here,
call him up. Let me call him.
I literally just reached for my phone. It's like I call him Noli, so I just let me text Noli real quick.
You go by his last name? Chris
Yeah.
and I chat all the time.
Who did you call Chris the other day? That you're like, my good friend. You referred to a director.
My close personal friend,
Oh,
Chris.
Chris Pratt. Yeah, you called Chris
Yeah,
Pratt. You're
yeah.
just like, Chris. You know the Chris I'm talking about. Oh man. So they go on the shuttle, and I wrote down, because I feel like I am not a science person. Like, I don't know. I don't delve that deeply into that world. But I feel like once I accepted this, like I just trust him. I trust what the movie's telling me. I trust what Nolan is conveying.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what's cool about it too, is you don't have to, because I know I have a lot of friends that are into that kind of stuff and would pick apart that part of it. But to me, I'm like, I don't really need to debate that this planet is 7 years for every Earth's year. Like, I don't know about that kind of stuff. I don't understand that stuff, but I'm like, okay, I trust it. They told us it in the movie, and we can just go,
Yep.
Which I think it's cool. It's a movie. I don't think it talks down to people. It just is like, this is an interesting concept. This is, what happens in here. And like, that's how we're going to deal with that. Also, there's some time ticking in that scene. And I was like, oh, is he testing out a little Dunkirk?
He's prepping.
Yeah. Wait, let me sample that real quick.
I looked it up. That water planet, it's like there's a tick every 1.25 seconds, 1.25 seconds, and each tick is a day on Earth.
Wow.
I read that before, and that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Like that, it's it's a very high stress scene to begin with, but to put that layer on top of it when you rewatch it, it just like you feel every tick. It's like,
Yeah.
Hey, stop calling Shai Hulud over there.
Yeah. And then they lose one of the dudes on it, but they also know one of the guys who was there sending the signal, he's gone too, or she's gone too. Yeah, it's just a crazy scene. Like it's such a wild scene.
Yeah, they say she died. They later say she probably died moments before.
Mm-hmm.
So they had but it's like, why was the debris all together? The debris. And it's like, she probably just died. Like, I even like to think about like the waves are so like close to each other. I think, what was it, like 45 minutes? I can't remember. They said a time. I don't remember between waves, or how long they had to let the engines, drain. So they were there for a couple hours, right? That's why they were gone for so long. But then, they were like, she probably just died. Like, I like to even think about like the last wave. Like, this is the second wave that's hit this debris.
oh, absolutely.
It's like she just landed, perished.
And there's the they show the astronaut floating face down, and like you can assume it's the dude who just got swept away, but it's potentially more realistic that it would be her. Like, which is just also like,
Wow.
yeah, it's a whole mind trip of a scene. And then to get back to the shuttle, and bro's aged like crazy amount of years. It's like, I think Andrew said it, like it's like sad. Like it's like there's this weird like sadness of it all, of like they tried so hard and it still got all jacked up.
They tried
In
so
the end,
hard.
it didn't even matter.
It just didn't matter.
In the end, it doesn't even matter. Tried so hard. I think that's my favorite scene in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's so interesting.
When they
'cause-
see that he's an old guy now, that he's
Yeah.
aged, that's super weird, Heath.
Can I say I love old people?
You saw him, they walk into the ship and he's just super old, and you're like, yeah, let's go.
That's my boy Blue. No, just the water planet. I think everything that was just talked about, I just think it's such a good, intense scene. And I love the idea that it's like we're wasting years. It's so heavy. And at the same time, it's just so interesting. And I always like, I love a scene that answers itself. Because they're like, why, for me, when I see them jump into the water, it's like, how did they know it was only a couple inches deep? And then they're like, and what did they say? Oh, I can't remember what that's called. They're in the swell or whatever of the wave, the wake. It's like when the water's pulling back because it's about to break. Yeah. Takes me one step closer to the edge. And I'm about to break.
Are you about to break? I'm about to break.
Hey, shut up when I'm talking to you. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up when I'm talking to you. Welcome to the Lincoln Park Podcast.
Lincoln Stellar.
Lincoln Stellar.
That's his new movie about the bomb that didn't blow up.
So that planet was the first one that was the closest one that sent one of the astronauts over. That was the closest one. They're like, let's try this first. We have a distress signal. They weren't getting like readings because I think they didn't realize that like the years are so different. Like she probably just landed, like we have nothing. And also I love the moment because I think it's when they get back to the ship or when they get, I don't remember if it's on the water planet itself, or like when they first get in, but he says we were not prepared for this. Yeah. And like, there was no data. They're only the second humans to go to this planet. And they didn't know, like they were not ready. They made a mistake. One small mistake of like, there's a wave. And like they lost 27 years. Yeah. Right then. Man. Yeah. So then they've got next. So they after go that planet, they've got two planets that are promising. They've got the one planet by, I don't remember their names each, but there's the head of the astronaut. Yeah, Dr. Mann. Yep. They're like, he has the best readings. He has the best, like, he's the head of the program. He's really good. And the other one was the guy that Dr. Brand Jr. was in love with. She's like, that's the guy. And she was, which I want to talk about this a lot. We might talk about more at the end if you guys want, but that she was like, I just have this feeling. And I know I have an opinion because I'm in love with this guy, but I want to go there. That's what my heart is telling me to do. So they have to choose between these two planets.
Yeah. And they choose Damon. Fun.
They choose the Martian himself.
Yes.
This is just a prequel. That'd be incredible.
Yeah. In hindsight, I wish he could have been. I know because the Martian came later, but I wish like he was holding like a potato or something in it. Just like he like went into cryo freeze holding a potato. Wait a minute, we didn't send potatoes with you. So, well,
that's too good.
And they introduce some new characters. So we see the heartbreaking video of this is everything that's been going on Earth. Which like, oh man, that again, being a dad, like your son is a grown man and he's aged 27 years and then he shows you his kid and then shows the death of his kid. I'm like, I was watching this movie by myself and I'm just like emotional in the basement watching this movie.
Dude, it's real, man.
It hit.
It's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they
sometimes go ahead.
Seeing the dude age was like, oh, crazy. But then you see the videos, that was like almost like what you said, Heath, like they just weren't prepared for this. Like this is all just a guessing game that is blowing up in their face. Yeah,
Yeah, I
just
just
the
can't
camera aged.
imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine. I spent 4 days away from my 10-month-old, and I came back and I was like, "What'd you gain? Like 5 pounds and learn how to walk and stuff? Like, what's going on?" That's and like I make a joke about it, but like being even like reunited a little bit over that video message with his son. There's a lot of emotional energy and like expectations going into that. I can't imagine like Matthew McConaughey portrayed it so well, and I think that's what I imagine now of like deep hurt of missing out with your kids or something like that. It's hard to explain, but it was intense.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I loved how they showed that too, because this movie is such a spectacle, but it also did it in a way that was just like these quick little video memos of like, this is what people have sent you over 27 years.
Yeah.
Um, and it catches you up so quickly. And then like, man, you see full, they're real people, but for like character arcs, you see his daughter reject him for decades and then finally come at the end. It's like, by the way, you said I might be as old as you, and it's my birthday today, and I'm old as you were when you left.
Wow.
So,
Mhm.
screw you, Dad. So I was like, man, she's harbored hate, and she's like left him, and then at the same time, then now she's come back and been like, you never came back. Forget you. Um,
Mm.
and even the son, when he's like, you could tell he's been trying, like he's sent messages, and then he's like heartache, and then he's like, my wife says I need to let you go.
Mhm.
And it's like, because yeah, I mean, how long would you wait? Before it's like, I haven't seen my dad in, he, went, took an astronaut ship. I don't know what you call it, a shuttle.
Yeah.
There we go.
A spaceship.
It's like, how long do you wait? Anyone, even lost at sea or something, how long would you do you wait before it's like, I mean, 27 years, you don't hear anything from them because they couldn't send signal the whole
Yep.
time. Man, yeah, the heartbreak of, and then it keeps happening too. Like Dr. Mann is like, by the way, sorry, we lost your father today. And just like all the punches, the punches, the punches.
Yeah.
But now it's time to talk about our boy, Do You Love Apples himself, the betrayer.
The betrayer.
Matt Damon.
Someone else needs to talk about this guy because I apparently just figured out what he did. So
I love that you're like, man, what I do. So yeah, basically what he did, Andrew, actually, well, Clark, do you want to take this?
Well, yeah, he gives the green light, says, "Hey, this planet's legit." They show up. He's been in How long was he in like his sleep thing for? Do you remember, Heath?
No,
Does
I
he
don't
give a
remember.
time?
They said he had 2 years of food that he could stretch out, take long sleeps, and he was basically like, um, he said he was just in for the long sleep. He's like, I didn't even set a wake up date, so he's like probably used his 2 years, slept a
Yeah, and
couple of times, and then now
yeah,
he's like, I'm gonna sleep until someone comes and gets me.
yeah. And so they wake him up and he's like, "Oh yeah, like let me go show you everything. Like let's go figure this out." And so him and Cooper leave, and then that's where you like begin to slowly find out like he's deactivated. So we haven't even talked about TARS yet, but like the robot.
Oh yeah.
But then Matt Damon has a robot named Kip, but he's deactivated him and jacked him all up. So that's where like all the info's not being sent the right way. Um, and I wrote down the line. He says, "Pray you never learn how good it is or it could be to see another face again." Like just that idea of like he was gonna sleep forever and um, but yeah, basically it takes McConaughey out to the wilderness and McConaughey begins to put the pieces together of like this place is like just frozen clouds. There's nothing here. And then Damon is basically begins his plan of I'm just gonna take your guys' ship and leave. And like just true evil, essentially, but also a guy at his and wit's end,
I
Um,
just I looked it up and they
yeah.
said he was in cryo for at least 30 years. So
Okay.
probably woke up several times. He could be awake and like feet like in eating for 2 years. So he probably woke up for a while every couple of years for a bit. And
Yeah. And then, yeah, he basically tries to leave McConaughey out in the wilderness. Uh, the line McConaughey's like, you have like a 50% chance of surviving. He's like, that's the best odds I've had in years. And then he dips
Mm.
and like, um, yeah. And then it kind of snowballs from there.
yeah, we didn't talk a lot about the robot the robots, but those are really cool characters in this. I
Yeah.
feel. We didn't talk about this, but very Stanley Kubrick. I felt very 2001 vibes.
Yep.
Seeing this, some of the visuals, especially this ice planet, I kind of felt like with the top and bottom, like I think a lot of like homage, a lot of kind of visuals. Which is cool because I feel like Nolan maybe kind of played with that a little bit. It's like if you're thinking 2001, you're thinking evil AI, you're thinking
Yep.
evil robot, and these robots were probably the best of us.
Yeah.
And you learn that, and I think by this time, I felt that first time even seeing it when he's like, "Oh yeah, I deactivated him." I felt like that is such a no, that's the good guy. You took like that's a serious thing. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did
Yeah.
you guys think of just the use of those characters in this? Yeah.
I agree about the Space Odyssey, like the 2001 connection.
Mhm.
And I thought it was a really good twist because that's such an easy setup of like the AI is evil or like easily manipulated or whatever. And so to essentially have the issue on Earth be human and then the issue in space was still human, like was still like, nope, we're just the ones that keep jacking this stuff up. Like that's like I appreciated that. I was like, okay, that fits. That actually makes this again for me made the movie still very like I could stay locked into it, like believable. Um, to even where the whole chaos of Damon trying to get away and the ship itself is rigged to explode, his old ship and all that. Like it's like, man, he had 30 years to think about how am I going to get off this planet if I ever get the chance. And really, his plan would almost work if it wasn't for that darn robot and those kids. Like, you know, but I liked
Yeah.
him.
When Matt Damon's character took off his mask and it was Ben Affleck, I thought that was really weird. But I was like, okay, I guess we're going with this. Oh man. And then yeah, Matt Damon, I love what I don't know, I loved his performance so much in this movie this time rewatching it. I like when he was staying, he's like cuz he was supposed to be the best of them. He was the leader of the Lazarus missions. He was the best and brightest, but he had no attachment so he could go. He's like, you are going to sacrifice yourself. He's like I think they even said he was the one that said no attachment. We have to have people that don't have attachment. Because the mission, science needs to be the thing.
And maybe
And
that's
he
why
goes-
McConaughey couldn't go.
Oh yeah.
That's a good thought.
That's a serious like that. Maybe that's why he couldn't go.
That they didn't. That makes a lot of sense. I almost think that makes so much sense. Maybe I missed it, because I think he was familiar with the Lazarus missions at least. Because like when he was like the Lazarus missions, the Lazarus missions. I want to have a cold beer and all right. That makes a lot of sense. That's really cool.
But sorry, keep going with your thought. But that would make sense.
Yeah.
For our question earlier.
No, yeah, I mean that would make perfect sense. No, but his performance I thought was so great because he was the best of them, and then it turns into this. You have no idea the temptation I had. I was so alone. I knew I was going to die alone. I was never going to see another human being, and I have a button that all I have to do is push it, and people will come save me. And he goes, and he was like screaming it. He's like, I resisted for years. I resisted it, and I'm like, man, like I said, like I don't think they ever spell it out, but like I said, I imagine he was like okay, I see the planet, I'm gonna set it for a year, and then wake up and like explore, like expeditions, search, and it's like, but then he even
Yeah.
said later, he's like, I knew as soon as I touched down, this wouldn't be habitable.
Yeah.
And they say, I think the big lie is that there's a surface, that they're on an ice layer, that there is a lush, thriving
Mm-hmm.
earth. But yeah, then he went crazy. I mean, it's like 30 years. It's like, man, would anybody be able to last over decades of how many times waking up being like, you're going to be alone, you're going to die alone? I was like, I think it's one of the villains where I'm like, I think we would all get to that point. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know
Again,
if
it's
there's,
pretty realistic. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I don't know anybody you could put on there and be like, no, you're going to stick it out. And, and man.
And it's interesting because he's so cold. Like he's like he does a really good job of, and I didn't pick it up on the first time watching it, but he he's so awkward and weird and like cold towards them. And it's like, yeah, he hasn't seen anyone for 30 years
Mm.
and he knows that they've just joined him on a suicide mission unless he convinces them to get off or he steals their ship. So I think you're right, Heath. I think he's a really like it's a good villain. Like he is the villain of the movie, and it's actually really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's incredible. And it's such a good performance. I actually don't have a lot of notes left. I mean, I think the rest of it goes, and he leaves the planet, and they're like, we need to see a black hole, so we're gonna have to go through that. And yeah, he decides that he's gonna be the one to go back through the black hole, and then we get to the bookshelf scene. So, which is kind of ties the whole thing together. Do you guys have some thoughts on that?
So I'd love to hear. I think one of the first things that Andrew Clark said um, was that he um, was like saying stay very early on in the
Hmm.
movie. And I think maybe this is something I missed again, but um, was that a message for I like that's a message for himself. Like, don't
Yeah,
go, just stay with your
yeah,
family. And so like after all of his experiences, he's not able to hold on to the fact, well, maybe it's not a fact. Well, I'm processing right now. He's not able to hold on to the idea that maybe he did fix it and maybe he did save the world, but or humanity, he just doesn't know. So at this point, when he's saying stay, he doesn't know that he's had a positive effect. And he's saying it's all hopeless. Just stay like you wanted to. Is that accurate?
yeah. So he goes into the black hole, but doesn't arrive on the planet. He ends up in the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
So what we see is it's the Tesseract. So that's a big, MCU word, but
Hmm.
it's the idea of like the four-dimensional cube that he is now in and able to see, the fourth dimension being time.
Yeah.
So he is seeing everything. The issue is he can I think he can interact with, but he can't change. Like things are going to play out how they're going to play out, but he can't necessarily like truly cause to happen. So what we're seeing is he is seeing young Murph, he's seeing him interact with Murph. He's trying to talk to himself, the 10011, like he's saying
Uh-huh.
stay, stay, stay. Um So we then see older Murph. She like goes, comes back, and he's able to interact with her by knocking all those books off.
Hmm.
And then she goes to the watch again, and he gives her the um the wormhole, the black hole wormhole coordinates, or like the gravity. Like this is where I'm getting a little skewed. But he basically explains to her. I'm trying to see if I have my notes, but he basically gives her like the way the thing for gravity. He explains the
Oh,
gravity
the
thing to
gravity
her,
solution. Yeah.
and then she runs back to NORAD, and that's fast forward, boom. He wakes up out of the fifth dimension or gets out of it, and he's on the Lazarus now, like new Earth thing that's in space that Murph eventually is the one who creates and leads and builds.
Yeah. So until that moment where he wakes up, maybe from the Matt Damon part
Hmm.
until he wakes up, he's like, this was all garbage. Like I shouldn't have done this. It's not working out.
Yeah.
And my kids are just gonna die thinking that I abandoned them.
Yeah. It's the whole like time is a circle. Like it's that
Mm,
uh what's the Loki movie talks about Aura Borealis, like that idea, like the snake
yeah.
eating itself. And so I think that's where we see him because that's the whole scene where he's like, Murph, no, Murph. Like he's all freaking out. Like we're seeing him have to like rewatch like him failing and leaving. So that's where he's originally saying, like, just stay, just stay, just stay. And he's trying to tell it in the watch, but McConaughey's still going to do what he's going to do to get back to this point, right?
Man, he always does, doesn't he?
And so it is. It's like an older Murph comes back to the room because there was something else. Because I think she remembers the watch said something to her, and she's like, "Oh, that might have been something." And so he's able to mess with the watch and then explain to her the science that is then used to get them off the planet and ultimately like
Mm,
build the space shuttle that helps basically begin to repopulate and then also get Brand to the other planet that is inhabitable, which he ultimately
yeah.
is leaving into the movie to go join her at. So it's the whole, and this is not my own opinion, but after watching it and reading about this, it's the whole idea of like love conquers all.
Yeah.
Like that's the big, he does see his, like he tells Murph, I will see you again. It just happens to be like 100 years later and he sees her
Hmm.
again. But like that love transcends everything. So even like Anne Hathaway's character, Brand, like she just knew the dude she loved was right. Like there was something drawn to her. Like there's that idea of like love will transcend time, it'll transcend space, it transcends all. Um that to me, I read that and I was like, yep, that's I get that. I see that. I don't
Man,
know how
that's
you feel about that, but
no, I like that. And that's so hard for me to comprehend. I'm not a writer. I am um I'm a consumer. Like that
hmm
kind of sounds weird. But like I don't play music. I
hmm
love listening to music. I don't
same,
write books or novels. I love reading. I
same.
like same with movies. And that makes me think like at what point in the process, let me call up Chris.
Yeah.
Um, at what point in the process did that theme break out, or was that in beginning stages of like no
Mm,
matter what happens with space and time and dimensions, humans are connected and humans will fight for each other and their
yeah.
love, their connections that they have. Um, or was that like a super late thought where he was like, wait a second, all these things,
Yeah.
like there's got to be something with like people being connected. Like he just seems like such a like ethereally smart guy,
Yeah.
and he just surrounds himself with with other writers that are so good.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And that's why I think your idea of, or your question of would he have gone if he didn't have kids, I think is such an important question because I really do, I really think that was the main thing. I think he saw there was a hope for his kids. So
Yeah,
go. I think himself in the fifth dimension saying stay is he knows how much he's going to miss. Right.
yeah,
And so there's the initial push of like, again, it's almost what we talked about Steven Spielberg. It's what we talked about. Christopher Nolan brought his daughter onto the set of the movie. She's in the movie at one point because he realized he was spending so much time away from her. So it's like this idea of like, um, don't miss out. Like you've missed so much, you're missing so much. Don't leave, don't leave. That's the whole stay mentality. Even though him leaving ultimately saves them. You know
yeah.
what I mean? But it is ultimately Murph from her father
Hmm.
who goes and saves the whole world
Yeah.
because he went
But
because
even
love
if he
conquers all.
did, yeah. even if he did go, okay, so let's say he never leaves NASA. He isn't on the 12 mission, but he's on this mission to go, same mission.
Mhm.
Um, he does everything exactly the same. The 27 years, the Matt Damon debacle, and he enters the Tesseract fifth dimension, but he doesn't have kids. He doesn't have a family that he loves. He probably doesn't save the world, which is the whole point of like love and human connection is what drives the salvation of humanity. And because if you're like just floating around, you're like, well, I'm dead for sure. You don't like reach out to
Yeah.
anyone, you know? You don't
Yeah.
poke around on a bookcase.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think that's where, so to answer your question, I feel like Nolan had to start with that in mind
Yeah.
and then go from there. Like that idea of time, whatever comes in the way, like love is the greatest thing. Like love is the most important thing. And so that will ultimately fix it or get us through whatever.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Wow.
It's a good movie.
It's a
Yeah,
it's a
I should
great
I
movie.
should rewatch it. I should rewatch it knowing that I actually probably like it.
Yep. It's incredible.
I love how
And
you figured it out as you did it though, that you're like,
that
"Oh
was a
wait,
thing.
Like,
did this happen? This would be cool if
yeah.
this wait, that happened."
I
Well,
will I will say this real quick. The docking scene is peak cinema too,
Ooh, yeah.
with the spaceship looking like a clock and the Hans Zimmer just killing it behind
dude.
the scenes and like that whole wild, incredible,
Yeah,
incredible to see that in the big screen.
the matching the rotation,
Yep,
and just like, wow. Ah, that was great.
great film.
So good. I apologize. I had to step away there for a second. I don't know if you guys talked about this, but did you talk about the ending of the just like he wakes up? Did you get there?
Hmm.
A little bit,
Okay.
yeah.
Just it was interesting because I did think it was funny that they basically were like, "Hey, go to Brand. She's just chilling on that planet alone," and he just like grabs a shuttle and goes there. I was like, did they not? Were they not going to get her? Like, were they not gonna like?
Who knows?
I don't know. It's like it seemed like a pretty easy like, hey, just jump on that bicycle over and ride over there. It's like we're too busy. We're on our mission. No, I don't know. I just thought that was I thought it was a good ending though, for sure. I loved how that ended, just because it was like he's with the team that's perpetuating, humanity,
Yeah,
and she's like, Murph is like, I've got my kids around me, like,
yeah. And she's
continue.
passing away, and we were saying like he accomplished the goal. He said he would see her again. He didn't know it was gonna be a
Yep.
hundred and some years later, but or when she's 100 and some years old, but he sees her again. Um, and it's like I think that was just the next step. Like, okay, let's go do this
Hmm.
because I think they're gonna use that planet to repopulate and actually like so they're gonna be Adam and Eve on that planet is basically what's gonna happen.
Yeah, because then they've got all the embryos, and so I think some surrogacy is going to happen, or they said that they've got the biodiversity to
Hmm.
they've got the plan basically, which is interesting. I mean there's a lot of what ifs. I never thought about it, but there's so many what ifs to this movie. Like I think again, if he didn't have his kids, maybe he just would have stayed with Brand. Maybe they'd be like, "Yep, let's go to the last planet." Never saving humanity, but there would be future of human race, but it would just be vastly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
man, and
So good.
I don't know if I apologize if you guys brought this up, but I love how he's like, "Oh, Cooper Station. She named it after me," and he goes, "Well, not you, Cooper. It's like your daughter was always very big on how important you were." Like her daughter, like his daughter saved the world, and she was always like, "Oh, my father he was a good one too," you know.
Uh,
Uh, awesome. Well, guys, thanks for being on. That was a super fun movie talk. I think I think we should do a lot more Nolans. There's a lot,
mhm.
so many movies to talk about, but this one was so fun. Yeah, you guys have any just final wrap up thoughts? Any of you or?
It's a great movie. We're
Mm,
seeing. It's one
it's
of
good.
those, like I said, I try to watch it. once a year, and it just reminds me of there's really, really creative and special people out there who like it's hard to like see Chris Nolan and not be like he is doing exactly what he was made to do, and that is make incredible films, and that's just I love that. I think it's epic.
Yeah, he's definitely a director that's such a what I did especially is he's someone I don't like to watch trailers for anymore because I just want to like I hear he's making a movie. I know I vaguely what I'm going to get, and I'm like I stopped watching the Oppenheimer trailer. Like I saw it once in the theater and I'm like people were like, "Oh my gosh, did you watch it? Let's watch it again." It's like I don't want to watch it anymore. Like I I've done before, like I'll close my eyes, but just like he's going to take you on a great journey, you know he's going to take you for a great story. It's going to be visually amazing. So it's just like, yeah, just go see his movies. They're great. So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on, McKay. Thank you as always. Did this make you want to do Alien Talk even more?
Dude, oh my gosh. I love Alien.
And speaking of trailers, Alien Romulus just came out. The trailer for it.
Alien Romulus trailer. I can't say anything. I'm gonna shut up.
You don't have to shut up. Our next big episode, we're gonna do top 10 adaptions. What we want to see adapted into a movie that hasn't been already. So that's gonna be our next big episode. Clark, thank you for being on, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was super fun, man. So at the beginning, I talked about that you're part of the Knights of the Nerd Table. Do you want to just kind of give us a little spiel about what you guys do and what you're about there?
Yeah, Knights of the Nerd Table. It's basically everything nerdy, and so everything from we have a podcast that's in the D&D format, but it's the idea of the villains are the heroes, so that's a super fun one. And then, but we also do stuff like Magic the Gathering, table play. There's giveaways. There's a Pokemon Go League within it. There's play alongs. It's kind of like anything and everything. And so you can find us on Patreon. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube. Again, it's the Knights at the Nerd Table. And it's a fun joyride. It's been cool to kind of be a part of, and the guy who heads it up, Nathan Porter, is an incredible guy, and yeah, check us out.
Yeah, sweet. Knights of the Nerd Table. Yeah, I listened to your latest episode. That was fun.
Yeah.
Is that what would you say is the main way? Do you guys want to get people to your YouTube, your Instagram, your podcast? Like, what is your like, hey, check us out here?
Probably our Patreon or our like Discord even is a great one. You can find anything and everything on Discord, or our Instagram, because that's going to then take you on to everything else. So,
well, yeah, we'll put a link in the description of the video and the podcast
Appreciate
notes. So throw you guys over there, and yeah, check out Knights of the Nerd Table.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, thanks for being on. Let's end it with. Do you have a favorite quote? Interstellar quote. I've got mine.
Mine is just I liked Damon's quote, the 50-50 odds. He goes, that's the best odds I've had in years. That, or I just like the Dylan Thomas poem, the Don't Go Gentle into This Good Night.
Rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah.
Sweet. McKay, you got anything?
Wow. I had to look it up, so I apologize. I'm kind of cheating, but once you're a parent, you're the ghost of your children's future.
Oh.
And I don't even comprehend the full, like that fully, but I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
New dad. Cling into anything about being a parent.
Too good.
Awesome. Thanks for being on, guys. It's a great time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We're available on podcatcher of your choice, YouTube. Keep watching our videos. Thanks for watching and being a part. Go watch a movie.
Go watch a movie.